Hi, it's Kale. I'm back again to do a sort of a casual, informal sort of book review on The Broken Crown by Michelle West. And so I did the series, the Sunsword series video. Well, you can find it on the channel. It's only got a few videos. Let me get some tunes playing. Just got some lo-fi, ooh, girl going. Not too loud. I don't want that loud. And let's keep that there. Let me just kind of set everything up. It's going to be very informal. I think my dogs, some of them are awake and some of them are sort of dozing, so we'll see what happens with them. I'm going to turn it down just for myself. Let's see here. So let me go ahead and show you the book cover. That is the cover of the book. And on the cover is one of the main characters. Her name is Diora and Leon. And she's known as the Flower of the Dominion. So I've got some notes here. And since I don't have a teleprompter or anything, I'm just going to kind of read through it, talk to you about the book, tell you why I like it. This is my favorite fantasy series. So I'm going to try to avoid spoilers as much as possible for those of you who haven't read it, who might be interested in reading it. But there are going to be some, but I'm going to try and make it as vague as possible. So let's go ahead and get started. So this is the introductory book of the Sunsword series, which has 6 books. And what you're going to do is kind of get an introduction of the kind of overall story and of these many characters that are in this series. There are 2 major countries in this world. They don't really talk about other areas in the world. It's not like a science fiction-y book where there's like 8 trillion countries, or a major fantasy like has like 8 trillion countries. It's not like that at all. It's just kind of limited to one area of the world that we know of. So in the north, you've got the Empire of Esselion, and in the south, you've got the Dominion of Anagar. And then way in the far north, you have the Shining Court, which is where the baddies live. So in The Broken Crown, you start getting the introduction to some of these main characters. Now, it has a prologue. I know some people don't like that, but the story that the prologue tells is key to everything else that happens in the rest of the book. So there's 6 books all total in this series. I believe in the second series that's related, same world, overlapping characters, that's like 8 books, I think, if I remember correctly. So I've read this book so many times. I just love it. As a matter of fact, the cover is starting to rip. It's just so worn down. So in the prologue, we get the story of Askeia. I think that's how you say it. It could be Askeia. Askeia. Askeya. I just say Askeia. She is a healer from the house of Levick in the Empire of Esselion, so she's in the north. Now, her story is key to everything because of what happens to her. So, she is a healer, and healers can obviously heal other people, but they can sense like their healing. Their healing skills allow them to kind of feel when somebody's hurt. So she's walking about town doing her business and she feels pain. And it turns out it's coming from a woman who's holding a baby, and it's the baby that feels the pain. And so there's a risk with being a healer that if you touch the other person, you can kind of get drawn into them and kind of like sucked into their soul. And it's very difficult to separate yourself from them, especially if you're trying to save them from death. Little dog, sorry about that. So when they're close to death, it's very difficult to call them back from death without becoming them, so to speak, like intertwine with them. And so she's kind of what would be called like a soft healer, because she feels that need to heal everybody that's hurt. which isn't a good thing. You have to have like that boundary to protect yourself and not totally give your life to save the other person if you want to continue being a healer and you want to continue living. So in town, she sees the hurt baby and realizes that they're being followed, and it's a demon. His name is Isladar. He's a key character in the series. And without like going into too many details of what happens, he does take her away to the Shining Court, which is where the demons live, way up in the north. It's a really tragic story, and it's sad what happens to her. So the Lord of Night, who's the bad guy, has a plan where he wants to bring himself fully onto the plane of the physical realm. Right now he's kind of half there and half in what they call the hells, which is where like most of the demons live. So he's trying to manifest himself into the physical plane, and he wants to have a child. And so he's going to use her, Askea, as the mother of this demon human child. So I'll leave it at that, but it's a really tragic story, and you feel for her. Anybody in the position that she ends up in would just be utterly terrified, and Michelle West writes it really, really well, so it draws you into the story. You want to read more, see what happens. There's a bit about Ashaf. She is in the Dominion. She is the one who ends up raising this baby and kind of taking care of Askea at the end. So she has some significant meetings with some other significant characters. I won't go into like the details about it. So she meets with Yvain and Yolana and Isladar. And actually Isladar is the one who brings her up to the Shining Court to take care of the baby, whose name is Kiriel. So that's kind of like the prologue part of the book, to just kind of get you set. You kind of learn a little bit about the world, the countries, there's a demon, there's healers, so there's magic. It's not magic like wielding a wand, but there's magic. And so then you move into the next section of the story. So here you start having the Dominion characters come into play. So you've got Sindari, and he is the lady on the cover of the book, her father. Now, he is grieving the loss of his wife. Her name is Alora, and she is Diora's mother. And it really affected him because he loved her, like soulmate love type of thing. He's working to become what's called a Wyden, which is a type of sorcerer in the South. That's what they call them in the South. He's a Wyden, or working to become a Wyden. And his working to become a Wyden breaks a promise to Alora's mother that has lots of consequences, down the road. Some pretty tragic ones. And then we've got Teresa, who is Sindari's sister. She's very beautiful, but she is considered to be an old maid. She's not married. She has no children of her own. And in the South, in the Dominion, they have, when you're a married woman and your husband is, significant in some way, shape, or form in the clan, because it's very patriarchal and tribal in that land, you can have your own harem, and you can have like sister wives that help you run the clan and the household. So she doesn't have that. And I feel a puppy at my lip. No, go lie down. Okay, now we got the AC going on. Lovely. Well, it's, really super hot here in Texas. So anyhow, so Teresa's unmarried. She doesn't have her own harem. She has no sister wives. She has no children. And she's trapped in this life. And trapped by her brothers. So secretly, she has the power of what in the North they call the Bard, and in the South is known as the Voice. So when you have that power of the voice, you can control other people with your voice, with your words, and you can also hear when they're not telling the truth. So they kind of keep her around. They don't want her to get married and leave the family because they're using her power for their own gain. So that's her situation. Now, she fell in love with Sindari's wife, Diora's mother, Alora. So, of course, she's also grieving the loss of Alora. And that kind of, all that just comes back in later. That little triangle, it's a terrible triangle. All right, so let me change the page here. The AC. Then we've got Diora. Diora is the flower of the Dominion. She's the lady on the picture of the cover. And let me go ahead and bring up the other books in the series just so you can kind of see them there. So Diora is not married, but she's of marriageable age, and she also has the voice talent. She's also got that bardic talent, and she's actually very powerful in that talent, more powerful than her aunt. But again, she's young at the beginning of the book, and nobody knows that. And then Teresa discovers that, and then all sorts of stuff happens because Teresa wants to protect Diora from the patriarchal, you're not supposed to have the voice type of thing. It's supposed to be kept secret because they use it in the north, but down in the south, that's like, you're like a demon child, and then they like kill you basically if you have any kind of magical talent, because they just don't trust it. So she's very close with Teresa. Teresa kind of sees her as her daughter since she can't have children of her own. So then we get to another important group of people, and we're still down in the south in Anagar. And so you have the clans, and the Clan Leon is the strongest clan in the south. They've been ruling Anagar for hundreds of years, and they were blessed by the Lord of Day, which is like a good god. Down in the south, he's called the Lord of Day. He gave the Clan Leon the Sun Sword to protect them and help them fight against their enemies. So they kind of have like the magic sword because they were chosen. But over time, it's been hundreds of years, and they've just kind of become decadent and kind of weak. They didn't win the last war with the Empire in the north, and they had to give over some hostages, and the north left some hostages in the south, but basically they lost that war. So they've just become to be seen as weak, and in the Dominion, being weak is no good. You're just held in contempt because it's all about power and the strength of the warrior, and how much political clout you can wield in the South. So the other kind of military men are like, this is like no good. We want to overthrow the Leons and take over ruling Anagar. So that coup is kind of like going on in the background throughout the book. But, of course, the Leons are still in charge and they still have power. So the man who runs the clan, his name is Marcaso, and he has a son named Ilara. And Ilara hears about Diora, the flower of the Dominion. And, of course, she's like the most beautiful woman in the South. So, of course, he wants her as his wife. And Sindari, Diora's father, can't say no. He tries to say no because he loves her so much. He doesn't want her to go through that because he knows that, men can be cruel. So he gets to the point where he just can't refuse. They're like, you need to give us your daughter. And that's it. So she ends up marrying into that clan and ends up with her own harem of sister wives, which is also a very good part of the story. Even though her husband is very cruel and he's capricious and drunken and all that kind of stuff, he's that decadent, self-indulgent type. She does find refuge in her sister wives. She becomes very close with them, and as a matter of fact, they become her oath wives. Like they swear lifelong oaths to each other. So let me go ahead and give you kind of a note on the leadership in the South, which is not the same as in the North. The main leader, his title is Tiragar. And then there's like the major clans, there's like 5 of them. They have their own title. They're known as Taragnates. And then below them are their lieutenants, and those are Toragars. So they have like titles that go with them. So that's just something. And then the women in the South, if they have enough, for the most part, if they have enough social standing, they're known as Serra. So the men you can call, like the non-leader men, are Ser, S-E-R, and then the women are Serra, S-E-R-R-A. So it's Serra d'Eora. So here's where I'm going to try and be careful with my spoilers and hope that the AC goes off soon. There comes a night when there's like a major betrayal of everything that d'Eora loves and cares about. And basically, her world is destroyed and the clan Leon is just vanquished. They're like, yeah, it's pretty bad. So that kind of like ends that kind of little bit. And then in the north, in the Empire of Esselion, now the Empire of Esselion is ruled by 2 kings. They're twin brothers, and they have 2 queens. And there's numerous gods that they deal with and pray to. And there's the mother, and Mandaros, who's the god of death, and blah blah blah. So there's like, it's like totally different. They have mages, and magic is accepted and used, and they don't have patriarchy or matriarchy. They have what they call the houses, and houses are more bonds of fellowship as opposed to blood bonds. So it's a totally different setup, and so they kind of clash with the Dominion of Anagar. So up in the north, they're getting hints of the demons starting to do things that they shouldn't be doing. And so they're going to start like kind of prepping for, maybe not like a major war, but battles, just kind of prepping against that. And they do have hostages up there from the last war that they fought with the Dominion of Anagar. And so one of the most important hostages up in the north is Valadin de Leon. Get the last name, de Leon. He is the last heir, the last survivor of the clan Leon. So of course they find out in the south that he's alive, and they just want to kill him. They're like, we got to kill him, because if we don't kill him, he can hold the Sun Sword, and then he can rule the whole south. So they're like, we want to kill him, and they do try. So which is also interesting. But that story is. What happens with him is more told in the second book, which is The Uncrowned King. You can see that up there, and that picture is Valadin on the front there. He's a really great character. She writes really great characters. So, okay, so check my notes. So, okay, Valadin's up there, and then they have the coup. And when they have the coup in the south, when they decide, like, we're going to kill these Leons, and we're just going to go and do it, and we're going to take over, they kill the hostages that were there in the south from the Esselion Empire. So the Esselion find out about it, and they're like, we want to kill all these southern hostages, which includes Valadin. And he's like, I have to, like, go in front of the kings and, like, plead for my life and for the life of my fellow hostages. And that whole scene is, like, intense because stuff happens. So yeah, I'll just leave that vague because it's really, really good. It's really exciting. So in the meantime, while all that's going on with the coup, and then d'Eora's like kind of held a prisoner by these rebels, and her father is a rebel, and so they bring her back to his house, and she's kind of just trapped there, and she's trying to figure out how to get vengeance, and she's working on it as best as she can, just to understand like all the players in the picture and how to overcome what happened to her. The rebels in the meantime are like, I don't think that we can beat the Empire of Esselion. Like, they're kind of strong. They got like gods on their side and these freaking mages. Even though we have some mages, we've been killing them at birth, so we don't have that many, so they're like in kind of thinking that they can't win that war. So they decide that they're going to partner up with the demons in the Shining Court. And of course that has its own story going on with it, which is also very interesting because the demons are very interesting. And the way she writes them is really interesting. They're evil, but they're not like, I don't know how to say it, like the Kiali, which are like the more evolved type of demons. They're not like, they're evil, but they're not evil like what you would typically think of. It's hard to explain. You just kind of have to read and you go, yeah, they're not good people. They're not good people, but they're almost like analytical about it. It's really strange. They're like non-emotional about it, and so it's evil, but it's weird to read about it. So anyhow, Diora does figure out how to exact her vengeance, and it surprises everybody, and it sets them all on this path to this future that nobody knows what's happening. You know, you've got the Shining Court in the north, in the far north, trying to, you know, they have their own hidden agenda. They hate human beings. They want, you know, their lord wants to take over the world. You know, you've got the Empire of Esselion, who's been just dealing with the Shining Court for thousands of years, and they understand about it, but they've kind of got it under control, but not under control. Then you've got the Dominion of Anagar, and it's like stuck in its patriarchal ways with all of these traditions. But then you've got like this rebel comes along. He's like, let's just take over the government. So there's a lot of stuff going on. It's really just fascinating how she puts it all together. So let me go back and give you a little bit of my experience when I first picked up The Broken Crown. Okay, so it starts off, well, I wasn't really expecting the style of it, the style of fantasy that it is, because of course there's different styles of fantasy. Turn that down a little bit. And so when you first start reading The Broken Crown, you kind of have to figure out like what the style of the fantasy is, because it's not like elves, you know, it's not like this typical fantasy. It's different, but it's not sci-fi fantasy. It's fantasy for sure, but it's just different. Then of course, as you go along through the story, there's a lot of characters that you get introduced to. You get introduced to the world, to the Dominion, to the Empire, to the Shining Court. You kind of find out what demons are, but you learn more about them later on. So there's still a mystery, like what are they? You don't really necessarily like understand the gods, where they play into the picture, how the people in the north interact with them, and then in the south, you've got the Lord and the Lady, so they have their own little, you know, deity thing going on down there, which affects their life and their culture. So it's, at first, you're a little on the confused side. But as you continue to read, you start remembering who's who, where they come from, what part of the world they're in, and you come to start understanding the characters. Like you get to understand Diora more, you get to understand Teresa and Sindari. There's not a whole lot about Valaden as far as like deep into his character, but you know, you're starting to learn about the world, which is the fun part of it, because if you're a fantasy nerd, I'm calling him a nerd, big fantasy series are like a thing. You know, epic fantasy series are a thing. We love big fat books that have a lot of books in them. So it's not necessarily like action packed with a bunch of battles and stuff. That's later on down in the series. But you do have themes of power, because the demons are powerful, the gods are powerful, the warriors are powerful, and then the women have their own version of power. It's mostly unseen and not acknowledged for the most part, maybe a little here and there, but they have their own power in the Dominion, and they have power in the Esselion Empire as well. There's themes of control, love, hate, the anger that Diora feels after that betrayal, just the political intrigue and who's doing what and whose motivations are what. You know, there's a lot going on, but if you're a fantasy nerd, you'll love it because it's like right down your alley. I did finish it and just want to read the next one. I was like, is there a second book after this? So you know that you really like a book when you, a fantasy book, because they're usually done in series like trilogies or whatever. If you go and you look for a second book, then you know that you're interested in reading that. It's kind of like reading The Fellowship of the Ring and then going, okay, like what happens next? Oh, The Two Towers. And it's like that. Again, it is my favorite fantasy series. I've read this series over and over. As a matter of fact, I had to throw out my original copy of The Sun Sword and buy a new copy, which I'm glad I did because it's actually like a bigger format of a book. It's not the hardback. I don't even think these 6 books come in hardback. The newer series, The House War, does. And then she has a newer series, which I'll go into in a second, that also comes out in hardback. So I highly recommend it. If you like long fantasy series, epic fantasy with magic and political stuff going on and, you know, love and romance and battles and magic and stuff, you know, yeah, definitely pick this up. So I wanted to show you, so let me unhide this right here. Well, let me hide that. And let me go ahead and show you, let's see if it's working. Let me hide the book cover. So on my website, celestialrealms.com, I do have this Sun Sword wiki here that I'm working on. So let me refresh it so it'll show up on Streamlabs. Okay, there it is. So here's the wiki. And here are the pages that I've got so far. There are kind of, some of them are just, you know, space holders while I get all the information together. The 2 that I did today is the Clan Leon family tree, which is here. So there's Ilara, who was married to Diora. I need to figure out how to update that, but here's Valaden and Diora. And here's her oath wives. And later on in the book, she gets a sister wife named Tayla. So that's the Clan Leon. And then I put together the Clan Murano. So here you can see Sindari. He's married to Fiona, and they have a son named Artano, Diora's brother. And then there's Teresa and Adano. Adano is the head of their clan, the Murano clan. He's the first son. And then I think it was Teresa and then Sindari. I think Sindari is the youngest. And there's Alora, who passed away. So I'm slowly adding those. I still have to do the other 2 major clans that I have family information for. Oh, there goes the AC again. Is the Lambertos and the Calestas. So I'll get that going as soon as I can. And then over here, I added this section here, the Burning Crown. So apparently, okay, so the Sacred Hunt is 2 books. So all of these books are like mixed in with each other. And so she has a new one that came out. So I'm like, are you serious? There's a new book. So I am definitely going to get that. I'm going to buy it in hardback. I'm just like, oh, I just can't wait. Yeah, it's like, oh my God, the story is going on. What's going on? So basically you've got, let me see if I can show you let me see if it goes over there, the overview. Let me see if I can open the image. So you can see here where I put all these books. So I'll have to kind of update that with the new book. So this is the House War Part 1, or these 3 books. There's the Sacred Hunt duology, and that new one called the Burning Crown, or Hunter's Redoubt, which is part of I guess the next series is called the Burning Crown. That's with those people in there, which is Hunt Brother Stephen in Breo Danir. Breo Danir is a kingdom that's to the west of the Empire of Esselion. So that's kind of like a separate little sub-story type of thing going on. And then here you get the Broken Crown, Here's the Sun Sword series here. It ends with the Sun Sword. And then you have the House War Part 2. So she's been writing these books since, was it 2008? For a long time. So I definitely recommend you pick these books up. And here you can see her website. It's michellesegara.com. She writes under both names. I think one's her maiden name, one's her married name. So you can check her out there. And then you can see like her other Facebook. I don't know what Blue Sky is, but I'm a boomer, so I don't know why I would know that. And there's her Twitter. You can get on her mailing list, and so she'll let you know. So here's the new one. It's called Hunter's Redoubt. I am so just, I just can't wait. I cannot freaking wait to read that. Right, so the Lord of Night, they also call him the Lord of the Hells. Oh my gosh, I've got to read that. That's Stephen on the front. I think that's Stephen. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I'm really super excited about that. So anyhow, yeah, that's just some information for you on that. I'm so psyched. You just don't know. You don't know. Because this freaking book started it all. And I've read all of them. So that's 6, 7, 8, and 8. So 16 books. I just keep rereading them. So when I get to the end of the 6, I do the 2, and then I do the 8, and then I go back and I do the 6. And at any given point in time, I'm always reading one of these books. It's ridiculous. It's like this fanatic obsession. But they're so good. They're really, really good. Anyhow, if you have questions or comments, I know I sound crazy, but man, this is like a passion of mine. It really, really is. I mean, the story is just epic. Just too much. And I would love other people to discuss these stories with, because right now I don't know anybody who's read these books. So it would be great to, like do streams and stuff about it. Oh, just discussing like what happens with Dior, what happens with Teresa, what happens when like Calandris comes into play. Because if you look at, let me put this back up there. So on the front of the Uncrowned King is Valadin. And then the Shining Court, that's Margaret. She's a really cool character. And then Sea of Sorrows, I think that might be Elena and Nico. And then on the Riven Shield, you have Calarian, or Solarian, however you say it, and Calandris. Calandris is a bard. He's cool. It's kind of like a bard assassin. He's awesome. Yeah, Calarian's like, he would be equivalent in like Lord of the Rings to like a high elf. But he's badass. And then on the Sun Sword, you see Curiel and Valadin behind her. They're fighting together. It's really cool. That's like epic battle. Yeah. Anyhow, so before I go crazy, yeah, if you have questions, just leave a comment and I'll get back to you. My dog's growling. Evie. And please like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to put all the book reviews over here on my Kale channel. And I'm just going to put them under like the little book nook. So they're all kind of like together. Because the Celestial Realms channel that I have is for my crafting. So my diamond painting, my cross stitch, my coloring, and maybe I'll add my crochet over there as well. And then my Gaming with Kale channel is for my gaming. So I kind of split them up, and I figured I'd put the book reviews just here on my personal channel. It's not like it's gonna, become viral or anything, so it's a good enough place to put them for now. I don't know if I would ever make another channel for them. Just leave them here. So anyhow, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you pick up The Broken Crown. It's well worth it, especially if you're somebody who loves, epic fantasy with lots of fat books and lots of words and lots of characters and a complicated world and, political intrigue and so on and so forth, you will really, really like it. And I would love to talk to you about it. So that's it for now. Stay tuned. The next video I'm going to be doing will be on the Uncrowned King, and it'll be a similar format, just kind of going over the plot points of the story. And I'll just keep going on until I finish like up to the Sun Sword, and then I'll go ahead and I'll move on over to the House War, which is 8 books, and then I'll probably do the Sacred Hunt duology last, since the new book just came out and I haven't read it yet, so I have a lot of work ahead of me. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Be kind to the world, be kind to yourself. I will see you next time.